Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started here. I think we'll have a couple still trickling in, but we're going to go ahead and get started. My name's Aaron. Thank you for coming this morning, by the way. My name's Aaron. I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator for the city, for those of you who don't know me. We're just going to get right into it. We have Miss Jessica Frazier here from Straight Street Life Center. I'm really glad I was able to roll that off my tongue because it's difficult for me to say. We're going to talk a little bit about human and sex trafficking today. So we're just going to get right into it, and we'll let her come up and start her presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you all for coming out this morning for the presentation. As he said, I am Jessica Frazier of Straight Street Life Center Incorporated. I'm the founder and executive director. Straight Street is a vision that God gave me nearly 20 years ago. Nearly 20 years ago. And you may think, why so long ago? I've been around sex trafficking or exploitation most of my life. At 5 years old, on the last day of my kindergarten year, I was molested for the first time. And this would go on until I was 9 years old. And I believe it only ended because of his death. At 14, I was approached by a young man who happened to have been a preacher. He was about 25, I was 14, and he became my exploiter. At 16, in a neighborhood we had moved to after my mom's new marriage, some other friends and I, we realized, we were just talking about a neighbor down the street, how we would just take her to the woods and kick her butt, because we knew that she was selling her 9-year-old daughter for drugs. And we also knew that if we knew about it, the adults in our neighborhood knew about it, but nobody did anything for that little girl. And so when God gave me the vision for Straight Street, I'll never forget, and he took me to the passage where Saul, before Paul became Saul, and he was blinded on the road to Damascus. And he told him to go to a street called Straight, where he will receive his sight. And God told me that every child that comes through Straight Street, they will be healed, and the scales will be removed from their eyes, and they will be made whole. Well, at the time, I'm talking to him like, you got the wrong sister. I don't know anything about business. I've been working with teenagers since I was 21 years old. I don't know, this is like too big for me. And he said, you didn't give this to yourself. I gave this to you. And so it has been a process for me walking this out all these years. And he's put me in places. As a matter of fact, when God told me in 2004 to come to Georgia, again, I threw that back out of him. Are you talking to me? Don't you remember? I'm divorced. I have these 3 little kids. I'm by myself. Go to Georgia? I've never been outside of Texas. And he said yes. And I went. I came to Georgia 2005, January 2005, with a 12-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And I began to think about starting Straight Street, but I didn't really want to work with teenagers anymore. Actually tried to run away from them, tried to start something different, ignore God, like, okay, I'm over here now, let me do something different. But as it is, he did have me to start back working with the teenagers. And as I work with them at Angela's house, is anybody familiar with Angela's house? No? Angela's house was, Kathy, Angela's house was the very first and only CSEC or DMST safe home in the entire state of Georgia. And that was in the early 2000s. And this house only housed 6 survivors. I became the program manager for Angela's house and worked really closely with Mayor Shirley Franklin's cabinet because we were still learning back then. It was still a process. It was still early. As a matter of fact, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act was only 5 years old when I became the program manager for Angela's house. And the Victims Protection Act was so huge in this fight because that's when trafficking a minor, trafficking a child in Georgia was no longer a misdemeanor. It became a felony. 2000, 19 years ago. So we've made some leeway, and I'm glad. I hope I at least told you guys my name, right? Because I just got to talking. This is something that's close to my heart, and I'm really excited that this is a faith-based community because I get to share another side of my heart. Because I remember back in my little Baptist church in Texas, I was on my knees crying out to God, and I said, I don't want anybody to go through the things that I went through, but if they do, I want them to know that they can come out on the other side, that they can be happy, they can be healthy, they can be whole, they can have healthy relationships in life, come what may. And so that's Straight Street. Our mission at Straight Street is to inform the public and to intervene in the sex trade of minors. So let's get this party started. So I told you a little bit about my background, and it has everything to do with this scripture because I have been anointed. I have been on every end of the spectrum as far as exploitation is concerned. I am also the parent of a sexually exploited teen. My youngest daughter was exploited. I adopted her when she was 15. And she was actually the only rescue that I've done personally. So every end of the spectrum of this thing. So what is sex trafficking? Sex trafficking is one form of trafficking seen in the United States. You'll have people talking to you about human trafficking. Human trafficking is the broader term for this thing. I deal specifically with domestic minor sex trafficking, or you'll hear the acronym DMST, which is domestic minor sex trafficking. And that's the trafficking of our youth, anybody that's 18 and under that has been sexually exploited or at risk of sexual exploitation. So worldwide, this is $1 billion industry. In a month, a pimp can make approximately $32,000. $32,000 exploiting our youth. So the federal government defines sex trafficking as the commercial sexual exploitation of a person through force, fraud, or coercion. These traffickers are master manipulators. A lot of people tend to think that the traffickers, especially after seeing movies like Taken, a lot of our community or people in our area, they think that kids are forced immediately. No, they are usually coerced. It's usually the manipulation. This person is meeting a basic need for this child. That's why awareness, and you'll hear me say this again, is frontline strategy. Awareness is key. It's the beginning of the eradication of sex trafficking. Because if you don't know what you're looking at, then you won't know how to rescue a child. Let's see. So in order to understand this issue, we have to understand our youth, are the victims. And as you can read from the slide, it can be anybody. It can be your daughter, your son, your niece, your nephew, your neighbor's kids. It can be anybody. Their age makes them vulnerable. Their age alone makes them vulnerable. So statistics are unreliable, but we like them. We like to hear statistics, right? But we can all agree that one child is one child too many to be exploited or victimized in this way. And while the government estimates that tens of thousands of foreign youth are trafficked in the United States every year, the number of American children that are trafficked in your backyard is greater. It's greater. And so 12 to 14 is the average age of entry. 15 to 17 is the average age of recovery. So we're talking about 2 to 3 years that our kids are on the streets being used in exploitation. Consider it this way. If I had a dime bag to sell, I would sell it, make that transaction, and then I would have to go back and reproduce that product to sell. But a child can be reused over and over and over and over again. That's why, this is just such a horrific industry. And we're calling it industry because these people are making $1 billion off of our children. So this is a huge, huge problem in Georgia, across the United States, with our children. Misidentification of our victims, of our survivors. So a lot of people wonder why our children go unnoticed or unidentified. It's because most of them don't even identify with being a victim. I didn't identify with being a victim at 14 years old. I thought I made a choice with this man. I thought I made a choice. And so it is with our children today. They're thinking they made a choice. They think this guy is their boyfriend. They think that he loves them. And why not? Why wouldn't they think that? He's met the most basic needs that they've had, which is as simple as food, shelter, clothing, attention. So you have key players. A lot of people cringe at this part because you have your spotter. And this is somebody as close to your child as the kid in the next desk. And they've been watching. They may have been paid $100 or $200 just to be watching the loners or the kids that are maybe in need, maybe the shoes, or they're wearing the same clothes. You all know how materialistic this generation is, and the needs that they feel like they need to have, which is name brand shoes or clothing. So they're paying attention to all of that. Your spotter is. Now, your spotter can also be the trafficker. They can be one and the same. Then the recruiter. The recruiter is getting information. This person is sitting next to your child or online with your child asking simple questions. Simple questions. Just building up a conversation and getting to know. Do you know, I realized after thinking about how I met my exploiter, when this guy pulled up to my house that day, sunny day in Texas, I remember him asking, "Is your dad home?" Oblivious to the question. No, he don't live here, but my mama's in the house. Okay, So that was a check for him. And he did. He got out. He came in and spoke to my mom. He became a fast friend of our family with the whole intentions to get next to me. And he was successful. So the trafficker or the pimp, of course, gets with the young lady again, meets those basic needs, talks to him. I mean, he already knows a lot about her at this point. You know, if she starts just ranting about, my mom makes me sick, or I'm tired of being at home, he has an answer for that. It's that easy. It's that easy. And a lot of them, we see a lot of the traffickers or pimps with the girls we work with. They are what we call Romeo pimps. So they present themselves as the boyfriend. And they tell her that they are in love with her and they will take care of her and they will be together. So we see a lot of that. You also have what's known as the gorilla pimp. You don't see those so much straight off. They might turn into a gorilla pimp, you know, to maintain control of this youth by physical abuse. But they don't usually start off with that because they've learned, they're watching and they're learning our children. So recruitment and grooming, all of that was a part of the recruiting. And you have people in the malls that are watching the children. They're going to the basketball games. They're in the gyms. Again, a spotter can be in the school with your child. A recruiter can be in the schools with your child. And so a lot of adults don't even recognize the signs until after the child has been exploited and the trauma has taken place. So that's why awareness, I've told you you're going to hear this a lot, is so important. It's so important because you have to know some keys as far as, you know, how to talk to your child or what you see in the public. If you see a young girl and she's kind of uneasy, because I know being out in public with that guy all those years ago, I felt uncomfortable. And I know I looked just as uncomfortable as I was feeling. So if somebody had just been paying attention, and I remember telling someone one day, I said, I remember we were going to the movies, and I actually called him daddy because I was embarrassed about being with this older guy. But nobody knew our circumstances. Nobody knew that I was having sex with this guy. He could have been an uncle, but internally, I'm feeling uncomfortable. So I remember looking up at him and saying, Daddy, do you know that's a term for a pimp with the girls? They will call their pimp daddy. Okay? So just keep all of this in mind. If you see the uneasiness. Everything is not trafficking. We have like a lot of signs, but everything is not trafficking. But it's not for you to figure that out. It's just for you to open your mouth and say, hey, I saw something that didn't look right. You know, maybe you can check it out. You may have saved a life. So changes in behavior. You have the children that exhibit just disruptive and they may become loners, or well, not loners, but just shut down on you, or just any type of change in your child's behavior. Just let it be that red flag. Again, it may not be trafficking, but do something about it. Address it, basically. If you see your children with money or coming home with stuff that you know that they cannot afford or you did not buy for them, red flag, address it. And they may come off real quick. Oh, I borrowed this from Sally. Oh, okay. If you know Sally, ask a question. Ask Sally. Fix that thing. Changes in peers. Adolescents do not change circles as quick as you think they do. So if your child is in a whole new circle of friends, red flag, ask some questions. Ask some questions. We're going to go. So we get down to community safety. You see what I have on the front line. Your peer-to-peer. Your children are the biggest piece to this puzzle. They got to know about this. They got to know about this. It's in their schools. They've seen somebody. They've talked to somebody. But they don't know what to call it. They don't know what to call it, and they don't know who to talk to because we're not allowing them to learn about this, to be informed about this, because you think that you are shielding them from this, but you're not. They're already exposed. Community awareness is huge. And let's see where we're at. And getting involved with your police department. I know here in Douglasville, we have the police academy and other organizations. We now have, what is that? Youth Against Violence. But it's some, well, Katrina is the forensic, the child advocacy, thank you. We now have a child advocacy center here in Douglas County. Get to know those places. Those are resources that you can share with somebody if you think or suspect child abuse or sexual abuse or exploitation. This is big. We used to have to go all the way to CHOA to take our girls for forensic interviews. That's where they came from. As soon as they jump off the van, they running maybe because they know that area. So let's move on. I just add this little quote from, he was the Georgia's Attorney General, and he said there's only so much that law enforcement can do. And we can't be on every corner, and we can't be at every truck stop, so we need the public to say, how dare you take our children? We need the public to say, stop, or no. Not in Georgia, not in Douglas County, not in Paulding County, not here, not ours. So it's important what you're doing today, and I thank you. Social media. Most traffickers, a majority of traffickers, don't even have to leave home. They're online, they're befriending your kids, posing as a 14, 15-year-old girl, setting up meetings. That's why I like this. How the zipper unfolds. Meet Susan, a 42-year-old man. He just made a date to meet your daughter. So, build internal safeties. Make sure your child know they can come to you. Have conversations. Establish a relationship with people outside of your house. People with mentoring organizations, or people within the church that your child trusts. Let them be a part of your circle as far as safety, reinforcing. Setting guidelines for safety. You are the parent, you are the community. Our first community is our family. And when I realized that my family, my first community, failed me in some areas, God did something for me that was so supernatural. He gave me a community of women, my first grade teacher, and her name was Miss Frazier. Go figure. And other women in the community that took me up under their wings, that loved on me, that gave me hugs, that spoke over my life, positivity. They spoke life and not death over my life. Be that for our children.
Let's see. I wanted to make sure, I know you guys are reading, but set ground rules as far as social media is concerned.
This next slide is if you would take a picture or write this down, because it's for you. If you're a parent, InternetSafety101.org would give you some ideas for setting guidelines and help you understand the technology that your children, they know firsthand. They got it on lock. You still calling them to set up the VCR. Right? I mean, come on. We got to be in the know with this technology, with these things that our children are using. Because trust me, the traffickers, they have people in place. They know how to use it and get those kids locked down. I had one young lady many years ago, 13 years old, still, like she was babysitting and bored, left at home. The mom worked. She ended up connecting with her trafficker, and he held her in the hotel room for a week until they walked out and she actually got away from him this one day. But the internet is a beast. It's good and evil. So we have to learn more about it, what our kids are doing, so we'll know how to keep them safe. So if you suspect trafficking, report it to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. There's some things, I got some ideas in my head. I know God is going to direct me to the people or persons I need to share that with. But we need to have some solid strategies on the local level, a regional level, on the state level. But right now, the best I can offer you is, if you suspect it, notify the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children and or your local police department. When I mentioned my daughter earlier, but before she was my daughter, she was she had ran from the safe home she was in, and she called me one Sunday, and she said, "Miss Frazier, can you come get me?" And I asked her those questions. Where are you? She was downtown Atlanta. Who are you with? She was with him, but not at the moment. He would get off because he was working a job. He would get off at 4 o'clock. So my questions to her were, is he big? She said he plays football. He played football. So I said, check, he's big. Well, has he ever hit you? Well, I hit him back. Check. If he hit her, he'll hit me. And so I borrowed a taser, borrowed a car, went downtown with another lady. She rode with me. And we met an officer at a store. I spotted her, but I spotted the officer first. So I went to the store where he was, and I was like pleading with him. I said, you know, I'm here to pick up this young lady, and can you just come with me and get her? And because she is a runaway, but she called me to come pick her up, and I want to make sure she gets somewhere safe. Oh, no. You just have to, what county is she from? I was like, well, she's in DFAS custody in Clayton County, but she's right over there on the corner. Can you please just come with me? Oh, no. Call Clayton County. I don't have anything. I can't even, they won't even let me pick her up in the car. It infuriated me, but I said I can't focus on him, because if it had not been for the Lord, he would have been cussed out, and I probably would have been in shackles, and she'd still been on the street. So I could not focus on him, where I felt really let down by law enforcement. So I told my friend that rode with me, I was like, okay, he won't help us. she was like, what the H? She did cuss. She said, what the H? I was like, okay, so this is what we're going to do. I said, I want you to get in the back seat, put the child locks on. And because I already knew, I saw ahead of this thing. I told her, you get in the back seat, put the child locks on, and we're going to go around and pick her up. So we got on that one way. I can't stand Atlanta like that. So we went, and she jumped in the car, and she was like, well, what are we going to do? She was so happy to see us. She said, what are we going to do? I said, well, we're going to get you some food first, and then we're going to take you somewhere, you know, so that you can shower and get some clean clothes. And so she was like, but you got to have me back before he gets off of work. And I said, okay. I had to find my way out of Atlanta. Only thing I know is how to get to Douglasville. So I came, jumped on 20. She was like, why are we coming this way, Miss Frazier? And I was like, well, I want to stop by Popeyes. You want some Popeyes? And so she was like, yeah, that's fine. So we went outside, and our Popeyes is new. So we came on down, and I started talking to her. The guy started calling the cell phone he gave her, because the time, we were already on a time restraint to pick her up. The guy started calling the cell phone. Where are you? She was like, you got to turn around. You got to take me back. And I said, no. So this is the deal. I'm not taking you back to Atlanta. I'm going to take you somewhere where you can get some help, where you can be safe. No. So she started kicking and punching the windows and trying to open the door. Safety lock, because I already knew. She was like, but I got to give him back the phone. I said, tell him to send me his address, because he's on the phone. And I'm like, send me the address. I'll send it to him. A couple of cops with that address. So anyway, she was just fussing, and she was upset, really upset. She was at a 10. She was like, no, you can't take me. I got to get back to Atlanta. You tricked me. You tricked me. And I'm like, no, you know, we love you for real, and we want to get you somewhere safe. And so I ended up taking her all the way to Palmetto, to the little rinky-dink police station. And they were telling me, well, we can't do anything either. But I pleaded with them as well, where they put her in a holding cell, and we were able to call Clayton County DFACS, and we stayed with her almost 10 o'clock that night before they got somebody out there. But I stayed with her, and I let her know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be with you. I am your support system now. I didn't mean to hurt you or trick you, but I was not going to let you go back to him. And so she did, and I told her, I was like, and when DFACS pick you up, don't run. Don't run. I'm going to be with you. Like, I was reaching for her heart so she could understand that I'm not going anywhere. And she did. She ended up going to Wellsprings Living, where she stayed in their program, graduated from Wellsprings Living, and doing great. So during that process, she chose us to be her family, and because she actually had a choice, and so she adopted us as her family. And she's doing well. She's doing great. She's 20 now. She'll be 21 in August. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I told you all of that so that you can understand that this is not just some piggyback for me. This is my life. This is my passion. This is what we do at Straight Street. This is what we do. I'm an adolescent life coach as well. I failed to mention that at the beginning, because that's just part of what we do at Straight Street. But this awareness, this is what we do. We want people to know, and we want people to understand that our children can be saved. They can be kept from this. They can. We can make a difference just by getting educated. And that concludes this presentation. I thank you for listening to little old me. And
Have a great day.
Thank you, Jessica. That was great. We'll open it up to a little bit of question and answer. We only have time for a couple questions, and then we have another special guest here that has a couple things to say. So, if anybody has any questions, just shoot your hand up, and we can get going with that.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Pastor Lasagna Richardson from Love Christian Center. So often we see men as being the perpetrator. About what percentage are women?
Oh, they're in there. I can't give you a percentage, but they are. A trafficker can be a male or female. And the thing about it is they can be in ranks even. So a girl that has been, even in the safe homes that I've been program manager of, we've had to be careful. We had to be careful of some girls that come into the safe home because they've been groomed to be the lead girl or the bottom, and which means they had some authority in his stable. And so one thing, I'm a very authoritative person, and when I would see that on that girl, I would have to take a stand. So a lot of the girls that I work with, they would have it in for me because I'm such a structured person. But this one in particular, I remember, she didn't have any qualms about letting us know that she was going to take whoever she could with her from the safe home if they were able to escape. So females can be an exploiter, and girls can have that mindset to pull in for their trafficker other girls.
Jessica, can you go ahead and address everyone here about the need to have a safe home here in our area?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That is one of the biggest pushes we have for Straight Street, is to open up a safe home on the west side of Atlanta. I've worked with Wellsprings Living. I've worked with Georgia Baptist Children's Home. They have a program called the Victory Program that many people are not even familiar with, but I was supervisor for their home as well. They're both in Fulton County. We've had kids from Savannah, counties I can't even name right now, but children are coming from all over Georgia. And the problem with that is we try to do family therapy, because it's important not to just treat the child, but we have to treat the family or the caregiver that we're putting them back with. And if that's not appropriate, then I believe in taking the next step. Let's get them into independent living. Or we've actually sent girls straight to college from our program. So we have options, but having a safe home on the west side, it's gonna happen. I need your support, but it's going to happen with or without. So, but that's one of the things. Thank you, Miss Patty, for bringing that up, that we're going to do with Straight Street, is open up a safe home. And our Solicitor General.
I have a question. Oftentimes we are prosecuting young ladies for prostitution, and they're young. How can we, from the solicitor's office, identify whether they're actually a victim?
It takes an assessment, and not one of those grilling assessments, because Katrina Harley would tell you as well. It's about building a rapport. So you would need somebody to come in and just talk to them. And her question was how to identify whether or not they've been exploited. So again, you would not go into like grilling them. They really, at this point, don't trust anybody in law enforcement, anybody that works for the government. So you would need someone in like in an agency, from an agency like Straight Street or Georgia Cares or the Child Advocacy Center to come in and just have a conversation. Because right now they're not trusting you in the department. So you just need somebody to have a conversation with them, ask certain questions, certain ways, and then that would be the main.
So if we see something that looks suspicious, we should just call you all in.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, sir. This will be the last question.
Okay. One of the things that I definitely want to bring up is I believe in Atlanta, this teen was rescued out of Tennessee, and she was brought to a quote-unquote safe home. And one of the guys that was there that was there to protect her started to like her and put his hands on her, and then ended up selling her to a pimp in Las Vegas.
Wow.
So a group from in Atlanta that knew the situation, they went up there to Las Vegas and brought her back and put her into another safer environment with people that she trusted. So we always got to know if we bring in safe homes, that the people need to be trained. And
Yes.
background has to be verified.
Yes. See, I don't play that. Even with the staff that I had at these safe homes that I was over, we do have, like, the state of Georgia does not play. Like, I don't know where she was, but they don't play as far as it whenever we have employed people.
Even our volunteers have to have background checks. Our volunteers, this is so strategically done because they do tend to get re-victimized. Girls in the early 2000s that I've worked with, they've come into the safe homes, and there was, well, the officer hit on me, or the officer, you know, da-da-da. We have to be so careful not to re-victimize them when they come into care, because it's not easy when we first get them. When we first get them, they're like, again, not identifying with being victims, first of all, and they're looking for ways already to escape. We have to get them to the doctor to get checked out within 72 hours. Within 72 hours of them coming into care, and they're already looking for a way out. So we have to have trained staff. We have to have people that have a heart for these children. I've worked with some women that were just there for the paycheck, and believe you me, if I had that authority, because I made it known, if I had the authority, you'd be gone. So when I'm here, walk it right. Well, I think Aaron said that was the last question. And if you want to talk, we can talk afterwards.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you again, Jessica. And like she said, she'll be available at the end. I think you have some cards and things like that, so if you need more information. Also, we'll have her presentation and things on the city's YouTube page, and we'll get that on our social media the next few days. So if you need to send it to somebody who wasn't here or something like that, we'll make it available, and we'll also provide that to Jessica as well. So up next, we have Mayor Robinson to come up and give you a couple comments.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Ms. Frazier. Let me give you a squeeze. Let me give you a hug. Appreciate you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Frazier. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So because we have been exposed to this information, it helps us to be able to know how to pray and be more effectual in our prayers. I thank you so much, pastors and leaders and community partners, for coming out today and having the faith base that really is the foundation for any community that's going to thrive and be successful. So thank you for your time today. And this was very eye-opening, and it really pierces my heart. I have two daughters. They're 16 and 18, and praise the Lord that we continue to pray a covering over them. And we're just going to pray for all the girls in our community and not let it be an embarrassment or a shame, because we know it's the enemy and he's trying to come and attack. But the word says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek his face and turn from their wicked ways, we'll hear from heaven and heal the land. And so we're going to continue to pray and do what we need to do as a community. Pastor Harper just said to me, does the school system know about this? So, Ms. Frazier, you may be getting a call from the superintendent, because I'm going to talk to Superintendent North to see if the school system can have some education of teachers and administrators to help us to be able to recognize and combat this whole situation with victimizing our girls and some boys. So thank you again for coming out today. We really appreciate you. Continue to pray. Let's roll up our sleeves and do what the Lord has called us to do, because what we've done to the least of these, we've done to him. And we're not going to be found not being warriors, being prayer warriors and doing what we have to do in this community. So thank you for your time. Again, God bless you. And if you need anything, please come and see. What's going on, Pastor? Yes, sir. I'll talk to you about that after. I don't want to get in trouble. Oh, yes, sir. We'll have the Solicitor General. Do you mind coming to say just a couple of things? I know. Please welcome our Solicitor General, Attorney Sonia Compton, who's been working in the community a very long time. We really appreciate everything that you're doing for us, and we just want you to greet us today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and speak to us and just be with us in the presence. Thank you so much. God bless you.
You're quite welcome. Good morning, everyone. It was just a pleasure to be here. I learned so much, too. I mean, you hear about it, and you're like, well, yeah, is it really that bad? But I'm seeing that it is. By being in this office, I'm really beginning to see it. And the reason I asked you that question, I don't know if y'all saw in the paper, we had to prosecute a pimp a few weeks ago. And the young lady that testified against him even testified in court that she was afraid. And so it's true. And we really need to be aware of it. But I thank you all so much. And thank you, Jessica, for sharing your story. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's give it up for Ms. Frazier again. I think it was a very powerful presentation. And thank you all for coming out. That concludes our meeting today. If you didn't get a chance to sign in, please do so, so we can give you information about the next meeting. We're shooting for the end of June for the next meeting. If you need any information from me, I'll be here and have my card, and I believe Jessica will be around to answer any questions that you may have. So thank you, and travel safely.